Good morning, and welcome to our continuing series, Interviews with Aurovillians. Today we are in Savitri Bhavan with Frederick. Namaste, Frederick. And Frederick is one of the most senior Aurovillians, if not the most senior. Can you tell us how you first heard of Sri Aurobindo and Mother, and what it meant to you?
Sri Aurobindo spells a hope for the youth of troubled Germany. I don't have experience myself directly, a few recollection of the wartime, born in 1939, but I do vividly remember the total devastation of Germany. But not only the material devastation, the breakdown of all what has been taught to us of values and German values, punctuality, work ethics, correctness, and that all was employed by the horrors of the Nazis. So even in school and in high school, I felt always the big lie. What are you guys talking about? What are you trying to teach you? The classical values coming from Socrates and so on. They all were prostituted by the Third Reich. And into this total confusion for the young people, India represented an alternative. You might not recall, but there was, whatever it was called, there were 4 people actually from India who were role models, at least for the people I moved around. I'm talking about 16, 17 years old now. Mahatma Gandhi, Jawaharlal Nehru, who was also a member of the political non-aligned movement with Nasser and Titu. They did not want to fall into the big camp of imperialism of the West and communism of these. And the fourth one of these 4 figures of India was Sri Aurobindo. In effect, they are part of a biography which at that time was called India's Contribution to the Modern World. I read him, I read about him, but there was not much original text available.
How old were you when you first?
Maybe 16, 17. My mother at that time was interested in yoga. Yoga was understood as gymnastics, as hatha yoga. So somebody came to our home in Munich and we were introduced as small children. This man has spent 1 year in India, and I was remembering, I think, 1 full year, how can you survive in this wild place like India? People did not know much about it. When I had finished my matriculation, I did not want to enter the system. I needed a break, what they call a gap year now. But something in me knew that I was breaking away with the West. And for some reason I was banned to go to America. America, it was paradise for us. Americans are Superman. They liberated us. They had chewing gum, they had chocolate, they had oranges. I've never seen a banana. So I wanted to go to America. But I was barred, at that time, McCarthy period, from going to America because I had been to East Germany just for half an afternoon. I wanted to see a Bertolt Brecht play. I had a stamp of a communist state in my passport, and they wouldn't let me go for the next 5 years. I said, okay, F off, I go the other side. And that time also, I'm talking about 1949, there was not much air traffic. I came at that time with a cargo boat, India Steamship Company, SS Independence, from Genoa, Italy, 2 weeks through the Red Sea, Suez Canal to Bombay. And when I reached Bombay, only later on I heard about the experience Sri Aurobindo had when he reached Apollo Bandar. Something similar happened to me when I came down from the boat and I touched India, some weight. And I realized for the last 19 years, 20 years of my life, I've always been cramped on the defense. And the first time I could fully breathe out. Long story, went to Shantiniketan, to Rishikesh, explored India, experiences with gurus and swamis. There were not much drugs. When I was in westernized homes, there was always some whiskey, I guess. Till finally I got into Pondicherry. I had heard about Sri Aurobindo's companion, the mother, but I felt, oh, what French lady. Not so sure I want that. I got to Pondicherry by bus, booked into one guest house.
And what year was this?
1960. And mother had just stopped playing tennis. She was very available. She would go around. She would come to the sports ground. She would come to the school. Every morning she gave darshan. And I remember balcony darshan, when she, you must have seen, it's always the same thing. We're all gathering on the road, and then a silent falls, and then suddenly she appears on that lower balcony.
Yes.
And then she doesn't look down. She might have just looked down, and she looks up for quite some time, open eyes, and then she closes her eyes, and then she comes down sometime, and then she opens her eyes, and then she sweeps from left to right to all the people who were gathered there on the road. And it's like, I remember staying in there, and I could feel like a wave, her look would meet the people, and then passed on. Yeah, very strong. But I was reading at that time, mixing it a bit up. Was Satprema Adventure of Consciousness already out? It was out that time.
Yes.
It really brought something.
It was the book in the West that we all grew up with.
And I could see Satprema sometimes in his white dhoti on the beachfront, or going up the back door into the ashram. And then I thought, well, and I also, she had 4 public darshans down in the meditation room, don't know which one of it was. I asked whether I could sit in front of her during the duration of the whole darshan, which several hours, thousands of people would come. And I was sitting a little bit further than us two here, and I could see her. There was nothing mechanical in her. Everything was full alive, the way thousands of people. And then I asked for a darshan. And
an interview, private interview.
In effect, I was a very well-educated, very formal German, when you have lived in somebody's house, before you go, you say, thank you very much. And I have narrated that so often, so I don't know whether I should repeat it, but let me do it for you, Maharaj.
Thank you.
Sometimes a bit difficult to share these moments. You get yourself ready, you want to say goodbye. You have seen her. And go up the steps, go round the corner, wait till you're brought into the darshan room. It is in the first floor still.
Mother was sitting in her chair.
Mother sitting on her chair behind the door.
I met her also.
You first step into an empty room, no? And she is behind you, no? Then the thin voice says, first of all, I did not want to kneel down. We Germans don't kneel. But I was kneeling, and do you want to speak or do you want to be quiet? I was and I sat in front of her, and she allowed me to look at myself through her eyes. I could see myself. All the troubledness, all the fears, all the pressure, all the confusion, all the shames, all the anxieties. Just looking. And I think it's a great sense of freedom to be fully looked at. Maybe that's all. That's a darshan. Many other things had then happened. I had a sense of being shown my future in a picture where I could see myself just in a glass tube, in a little blue liquid, but this lit up, empty glass tube, this is what you can become. I left.
It's interesting that we have had almost the same experience. She said to me, would you like to talk or would you like to meditate? Of course I said meditate. Then it all, I knew nothing about meditation, but then it all happened. So how long were you with her approximately?
The time of the darshan?
Yes.
Might not have been. Time is stretchable, no? It felt long, but it might have been just 5 minutes, who knows?
Oh, really?
Yeah, maybe 10, I don't know, I don't remember. I know that I walked out and I felt so tall, but I was also highly vulnerable somewhere. I walked to the beach and I walked along the beach just to be.
So you were leaving and you wanted to meet her?
Yes, I had been there. I'd actually celebrated my 21st birthday in 1960. My birthday is 13th of May. I had celebrated that in Rishikesh, where India gave me another kind of liberation in the sense that I was in the Shivananda ashram, and Shivananda was still there. And we every morning after having a bath, we would gather with Shivananda and we would chant bhajans. And he must have, I didn't know, figured out that it was my birthday on that 13th of May. So suddenly the whole group were chanting happy birthday to Frederick, happy birthday to Frederick. And it was the apple season, so Shivananda gave us a prasad, everybody an apple, and being my birthday, he gave me 2 apples. And it was a steep hill up behind the ashram. There are little cottages. I was staying in a cottage, and underneath there was also a small cottage for somebody. And I had made a plan, because I loved swimming, I loved the Ganges, cold water, snow melt, but you go up from the ashram, kilometer or something, or a bit even more, and I went into the water, rushing water, and then it went into a narrow gorge there. Water was rushing down. I had my feet up, so not to bang my head against these rocks, lying there, and I had a sense, wow, this from the snow of the Himalayas all the way to the Bay of Bengal. I've stretched out, no? It was one of those Brihad expansions. And before I had left, I looked at this apple. It looked so good, so I ate the apple. But I said, another apple I keep for later. And I kept this apple on the table, and I remember that apple there because I walked out of my room to go down to the Ganges, and I looked back and there's this apple, beautiful. And then I look at it again and I said, it was rubbish. I have always told myself, if you have to do something, do it now. Don't wait for later. Don't store for the later on. What is, you want it, you do it. That was the message of our time there, you know. So I went back and ate the second apple. When I came back from my trip down the Ganges, had to scramble to get onto this slimy, moth-eaten bank of the ashram, made it hold on, scratched a bit, and then walked up and walk into the room. There's the table, and there's the apple. And for me, I started laughing because I said, you see, there is no point in storing up, hoarding for later on. You will be supplied, you will be given. It's liberated this whole anxiety, fear, because we grew up with hunger.
Oh, sure.
If you don't learn your Latin irregular verbs, you will end up in the gutter, you will have nothing. You know, all this pressure and fear was the educational tools at that time. And it just went on. I had eaten the second apple, and here was my apple. I was intrigued, miracle. But it turned out that the guy downstairs wanted to give me a birthday gift. And while I was gone, he went into my room and put his apple, but particular on this very same spot. Identical. Anyhow, let me go a bit further through. I meet the mother, I say goodbye to the mother. Mother is asking, what do you want to do? I said, well, I want to serve you, but I'm young, I have some money, I still like to. What do you want to do? I like to travel, but where do you want to go? Well, I thought maybe I go all the way to Japan. Yeah. My friend has just visited me here, Mrs. Kobayashi, she left. You should see her, gave me an address, and she told to Gautam, Gautam was there in mother's room, you show Frederick, she would say, you show Frederick my exhibition, which was in Golconda then, of Japan. So I felt I was being sent like a special ambassador of the mother to Japan.
Yes.
But I must confess, and we don't know whether you have experienced these things, you come from the height and you go out and you suddenly,
it all comes up.
Total abyss.
Absolutely.
Total. In Indonesia, I was at the very, very bottom. I traveled by boat at that time on my way to Japan. It was Rangoon and then Singapore and then Kuala Lumpur, Singapore, Indonesia, Hong Kong, Yokohama. The bottom. If I have 3 or 4 where I was totally lost, was at that moment, 1960 in Indonesia. I got to Japan, but maybe I needed to go through this total nothingness because I got very much involved in Zen Buddhism. I had a very beautiful companion there who wanted to learn German, I wanted to know them. It was very good, and I was getting very, very much involved in. I have a sort of militant nature in me for a long time. And then, particularly this class of Zen, Tendo Zen, was very appealing to me, very strict, very strong. You were actually being, if you moved during your zazen, you were beaten. And in fact, it happened. And the guy broke his wooden sword on my shoulder. And that's supposed to be the first step of realization. So the whole congregation of other monk novices, they all bowed to me. I only had a pain in my shoulder. Actually, it was the right shoulder. I come back from Japan in '61, fully convinced I have to tell the mother the way she runs the ashram is totally wrong. I have to correct her, fully into more organized and so on. And even before I even met her, it all had melted away again.
You had to correct her how?
When I came back from Japan,
yes.
I felt
your experience was different there? Or?
The experience was the mother had opened something in me, but she had not necessarily filled any contents in it. Yeah, it was not that I was like retro, but she was not giving me any content. While Buddhism itself also actually doesn't supply you the contents, but it gives you a very strong discipline and structure. Meet the guru, you have to get a koan, you have to meet the master every day. It becomes like a real discipline. And I felt I had to help her run the ashram, sort of thing.
Oh.
But it all went off. I was there a few weeks only, and then by boat I went back to, that was also in conversation with the mother, I would like to learn something to be able to bring back to her, that time there was no Oroville, there was all ashram. So I went back in the end of '61, started my studies. Long story, came back in '66.
You left in '61?
'61 and
went back to Germany?
To Germany, studied Germanistic, German language, English language, philosophy. Came back in '66, and then I wanted to become a member. I was accepted by the mother. I was accepted by, in effect, the mother signed the papers for my visa, Mira Alfassa, and I wanted to contribute. The first thing I thought was, she asked me, what do you want to do? I said, I think I can do something with my hands. And then you go physiotherapy. So I went there, but then I could feel I'm a bit contact shy. Massaging people wasn't really my trip. Then I ended up with Medananda in the library. That's when we met, '66. You were around '67, something like this.
Oh, yeah.
Played basketball. I was good in sports. Bhatti trained me for breaking my age record in swimming. It was good. And then you come to hear about mother is thinking of another place outside of Pondicherry. They were preparing. And then the whole story with Shyama and all this began. This is another story, Orison. And then the preparation for the inauguration began in '67, end of '67. Kirit Joshi was involved, some people of the ashram school were involved, Gilbert Gaucher, Roger Anger, the Free Progress people also, Tanmaya, and these people were involved. And I remember they coming to us. We were, at that time I had moved in with Shyama, in Rue du Mars, knock, knock, knock. We are expecting some students for the inauguration of Oroville. Can you accommodate some? Yeah, sure. So I think 2 or 3 students, I think some Swedish and some German, maybe Popo, I'm not so sure, were house sitters. And then Vincenzo was there, who was given the work to make the urn in Coco Garden. Vincenzo's coming also is a very interesting, very short episode. Austin Delaney wants to sell his Kaiser Jeep and drives up, I think, with Gilbert Gaucher to Kathmandu. You couldn't sell the car in India, so he drives all the way up to Nepal, meets every morning in the Indian coffee house in Kathmandu, can't sell it, difficulty, 2 weeks, what do we do? So forget it. Let's go back to, they're talking about the mother, and they're talking about the ashram, and they're talking about Oroville. And then they say, okay, let's go back tomorrow to Pondicherry. And then a voice behind the next table says, I'm coming along. That was Vincenzo, who, unnoticed by them, had always come at the same time when they were meeting, listening to their conversation, and decided to also, so he stayed with us, he was meant to do the urn, small little marble pieces, there is a grinding stone, bleeding finger, come back evenings and so on. It was getting a bit in a hurry now. The date was set, 28th of February, 68. Nothing was in place. Nothing was real. Kirit Joshi might have talked to you about it because he was in charge of organizing all these things, the students, the transport and so on.
I was there in that time, yes. Yeah. Mother had invited us after Annie had I had the serious accident.
Yeah.
And Annie went through the window.
Yeah.
Mother said, "Why?" I said, "I want to send you $3,000, Mother, because we recovered that in medical insurance."
Oh.
Mother said, "Why don't you come to Oroville and the inauguration?" Each ticket was $1,500.
That's exactly it.
And so we came. She gave me permission to photograph the whole ceremony. I'm still in the pictures there. So
on stills or on on camera?
Yeah, it was transparencies.
Our slides, yeah.
So I'm a little familiar with that, but not so much.
Well,
but I was close to Vincenzo, though.
Yeah, it was so many different things. People just came out of the woods suddenly. How do we get this large urn, heavy-duty urn from Coco Garden out to the site where the inauguration is meant to be? There's no real road, and so on and so on. And what was her name? The sister who was taking the letters from the post office. Millie?
Millie, yes.
The sister of Uda's brother.
Yes.
She drives the Jeep.
Wonderful lady.
She drives the Jeep.
Yes.
She listens to all these men talking. What is all this talking? And the French especially, the Gilbert and the Roger and whatnot. Next thing we hear from the Subedar, who was looking after the center set up there, saying, we don't know what there is. There is a trailer, a Jeep trailer with a strange object on top of it. What shall we do with it? Because she had heard it, she said, oh, what? The urn had already been put onto the trailer. She just hooked up the trailer and drove it out to the side. Mother saw later on the urn, I think after the inauguration, it was like a heavy rain like we have at the moment. And the wooden cone, the earthen cone and the earthen embankment was all flooded. And she gave an SOS call to Uda and said, is this urn secure foundation? The mother, Uda, had to send a diagram of the foundation which they had cast to make sure that the urn is not endangered.
Was it true that Mother wanted a lotus?
I think so. It's not in the agenda, but it is basically what the urn is, and also it was done by Vincenzo. It is a stylized lotus, I think so. That's where the shape comes from. No? It could be looked at as a lotus bud.
As a bud,
yeah.
Yes, I could see it as a bud.
But I have seen also in some models an open lotus, no?
I have also, yes.
No? I think they had this idea when there were different models for the galaxy plan, and one of them was to have maybe in the center this little, when the Matrimandir was not yet built, maybe there was something, and then Huta came in regarding a place for the mother's room and Huta's house and all this Matrimandir. Anyhow, the thing is that we were mentioning some of the ashramites at that time. I'm still living with Shyama and the 3 children of Shyama in Rue du Mars. Orison has been born in 1967. And it was quite funny seeing all these old sadaks looking at this little baby which I'm pushing with a pram right into the samadhi and into the meditation. There were no rules at that time yet. And Champakal comes out, and Amrita comes out, and Pavitra comes out, and Purani comes, and they're all hanging around, and they're discussing. Little Orason makes a face, and she says, look, it's smiling at she, and the other one, most probably Pavitra, who is more, it's not smiling, it's just gas in the physical or something. So it's a nice side of this. Oh, Amrit was so loving, the Tamil.
Amrita,
yeah.
Yes. Shelley remembers playing with Orason.
Yeah.
She still remembers that.
I had built a hut, and we used to go out sometimes. That was even before the inauguration, because I was involved with John to help with the laying of the road and so on. And after the inauguration, I had organized free midday meal. You see, I had brought quite a lot of money with me, in not only money, property. And I had a very strong experience where I suddenly realized that what my role is. And I came back and I wrote to the mother, all I have, all I am, all I do is yours. And in the all I have, I had listed all the property I had. So that was all with her. As there was quite a lot of money and shares that might have been turned into, there was cash also. And at that time, the official rate between DM and rupees was 1:1. It was obvious.
My gosh.
Yeah. The unofficial rate was 1:8. It didn't come into my mind. To every item, one house in Munich, one piece of land on the lake there, one this, one this, one this, one this, one this. She wrote against each one, yes, yes. On the last part, there was, 3,000-4,000 DM. The question was, what shall I do with this? And through Amrita, I think, I'm being told I cannot ask her this question. So I just kept the money here, whatever happened to it. But I'm mentioning it because this money or this property she returned it to me and said, look, we are not really geared for looking after family, because I started a family in the ashram, which is a little bit of you look after Shyama and the children. That was basically, and when I need money, I call you. And she did, through Maggie. So she put me in as a kind of trustee. And as we wanted to move out to Oroville, I asked her whether I could use some of the money to build a house. There were only bamboo huts. There were 4 kammers, there were center, there were pump house. That was about all. So I used some of the money for building a house. Some of the money I used to buy a tractor to plow. And some of the money I used to advance to create a free midday kitchen in the center. There were facilities from the time of the inauguration, and we were building, we had projects, mainly a road project, but it was so poor here. I mean, people really were starving. There was no road, no water, no electricity, no food, no work. So I said, okay. So I started that. We also ran into problems and so.
I remember how all of us were so interested in the first house you built.
Yeah.
We would all come to see it.
I remember.
It was a special experience for many people.
I remember, You came to visit also in the storeroom, which I had built till the big house was ready, where Sachi and Nicola are staying now. I remember you coming there through troubled times.
Oh, yes.
The house mother asked me to build, when she said you can use some of the money, she said you build a house in brick and concrete to show to the world that we are here for good. You know? So it was a symbol of the continuity and the permanence
of Oroville.
Of Oroville, because everything was temporary. We always had a feeling we can all close shop and go, no? And there was also the strange thing that there was a photo exhibition of Mother doing the mudras, you know? Huh?
Yes.
And the community had grown around Orison's home, which Mother had given a name to, Piero was there, and others had come. They said, no, the community should have another name. It can't be just called Orison's home. So we all had a meeting. We all said, okay, let's meet next time, and we decide what. And there was an exhibition in the photo gallery in the ashram of Mother giving this mudras. And I had gone with this subconsciously in my mind, what name shall we find? And there was this mudra, I think this one, and I look at what it's called certitude, or maybe I'm not so sure this one, certitude. Now, totally independent of it. We meet the next Friday, the community, Piero is there, and I said, I didn't state the background why I'm saying certitude. I said, I think this whole community could be called certitude. Piero, now I'm missing the French word for certitude. Maybe it was permanence, I'm not so sure. The same. Piero says, no. It should be maybe permanence, maybe it was another French name. And we first thought, why are you giving this name? And then he explained that I went to the ashram gallery and I saw a mudra which had this sense, and that came to me, that should be the name of the community. And we looked, and he had chosen the French name for the same mudra, and I had chosen the English name. Synchronicity. No, that house became then really sort of the center. It was like the town hall. We had concerts there, we had plays there, we had meetings there, we had underground political meetings there, revolutionary meetings, hiding people. And it became a maternity. Many children were born there. So that is...
I was living at peace at the time in the keep.
You were living, yeah.
Actually, Mother said, I will tell Navajata that you should have the first house in peace.
Oh, good. Yeah.
Never happened, of
Never
course.
happened. But I remember, actually have a picture somewhere in my mind. We meet, and the place chosen for the nursery was a runoff area for the water, totally washed out, not at all an ideal place for starting a nursery.
But it had the mango trees.
It had the mango trees.
And I had shade for the first time.
Yeah, that's true.
There was no shade there.
Yeah.
You know, it was a desert.
That's true, it had the mango trees, yeah. And then she was sometimes asked about whether we should do this, and Mother and people described the area, you know, and Mother, I know the area, I have been there. She said sometimes she would go out for walks, and Uda or Pavitra would take her out of Pondicherry. She was at the Lake Estate, and she said, no, I've been there. Most probably the road was ready till Edanchavadi. And then there may be a path, and then she would walk, and the car would sort of struggle behind her or something like this. So she knew the place. And even before the inauguration, I was in the ashram. I had asked her whether I could go to the land which was to become Oroville, which at that time was still considered to be inland from Moratandi. That was the first idea, that Oroville would grow there. That's why also so much land has been bought there. Till somebody, maybe Roger, says, okay, mother, you were describing now the inner center, the Matrimandi area and so on, but what shall we do with the main highway which goes through it? And mother said, what highway? And no, mother, there is this Chindivanam, give me a map. And then it was found out, she pointed out, this is a true center, that they had made a mistake, they're not reading the proper... So it was 2-3 kilometers more inland where they had started developing, and it actually was where... And she said, that's there where she says, I walked there, and there is, and then there came later on, they measured exactly where mother put her, whatever pinpoint there. But mother, you wanted a lake in the center? Yes, I know. But there's a big one in, yes, I know, you make an island around it, no? So she knew about that banyan tree, which was there.
And she gave me permission, blessings actually, for the nursery.
Yeah.
Well, we'll break for a few minutes.